Well, welcome to a new Harry's Garage video, and today's car I'm really excited about because it's a Lamborghini Diablo. Not any old Diablo, this was the first one that came out. This is car number 65 off the line. Now, Diablo history all kicked off in 1990 when they first showed the car. It was the Countach replacement. I've actually brought my Countach out as well just to compare the two. And they knew they had to update the Countach. Countach was getting pretty old. It'd been in production 17 years, and it was just feeling its age, shall we say. And also, Ferrari had come out with the Testarossa. And I know those very well as well. And the one thing about the Ferrari Testarossa is he's much more usable, much more user-friendly than the Countach, that still has the performance. So Lamborghini had been bought by Chrysler in '87, and they were still well on the way of getting the replacement Countach out at the time, but it really re-energized the development of the Diablo. This had to be a world-beating car, just knock that Testarossa into the weeds, but keep the excitement of the Countach and add the usability as well, which I think they achieved. Let's go and have a closer look. Now you'll see the badge on the side is Gandini design, and he did the Countach and he also did the Miura, and he was the favoured designer of Lamborghini. But unfortunately, when Chrysler came in, he said, "Oh no, we want to have a bash at this revised design of the Countach replacement." And they tried internally to come up with a design for the Diablo, and it didn't really work. Gandini was a bit miffed that his design hadn't got taken up by Lamborghini, and promptly did a design for Cizetta, the V16, very close to the Diablo. And Lamborghini, the guys in Italy weren't very pleased about this, because they thought that was their design. But he said, "Well, Lamborghini, you rejected it, I can use it." In the end, the Chrysler designs just didn't cut the mustard, so Gandini was re-employed, and he came up with this. And what a statement car it is. Look at that sloping rear glass. The amount of glass compared to the Countach is remarkable. You can actually see out of a Diablo. But he also wanted to do the rear vents like the LP500, the concept Countach. He wanted that look, and he achieved it with these great big scoops here. This one feeds the engine here, and this one here fills the radiators, which sit right at the back. I don't know if we can see those. I'll put a light down there in a moment. But the radiators sit right at the back here, and then they vent out the back. Like so, you can see the grille there. Now, the really clever touch I've always thought is he had to put impact bumpers on it. And you can hardly tell that's got an impact bumper on it. After the sort of plastic bolt-on horrors of XJS and things like that, this was such a neat design. If you look down there, you can see the concertina part of the bumper. A very clever design, but it also meant that the Diablo had to grow over the Countach, and it had to be a world car. Chrysler were insistent that this was one car for the world, while the Countach in the late days of Countach, they did a federal version with an injected engine and catalyst and horrible bumpers on it, trying to make sure it was federalised for the States. There's lots of people in the States now putting those back to a European spec, the downdraft carburettor version like this one. They're really quite sought after in America now, the carburettor Countach. But I think Gandini did a terrific job on the design of this. You can tell this is a very early Diablo. Because of these mirrors, you see how here they're actually not black, they're this strange metallic colour. Now, this had been a red or a yellow or white Diablo, those mirrors would be the same colour as that. That's how you tell an early Diablo. And an early one like this is two-wheel drive. Always in the plan for Diablo was to do four-wheel drive. That was the thing back in late 80s. They'd seen the success of Quattro, they'd seen Porsche introduce 959 and then four-wheel drive on its 911. But also up the road was a new factory being built, and they were taking staff away from Lamborghini, and that was Bugatti. The EB110 was going to come, and this was going to be this four-wheel drive supercar. So Lamborghini high up said, our next car's got to have four-wheel drive option. And they wanted to introduce it with four-wheel drive, but unfortunately didn't get the development done in time. But they needed to replace the Countach because it was getting outlawed in all sorts of markets. So they introduced this early Diablo in two-wheel drive form first, and then introduced the four-wheel drive, the VT, in '93. Not a big change for Diablo was the size of the wheels. We went up to 17-inch. Countach had gone all the way with 15-inch wheels, and it was severely restricting tyres, and also made the brake disc had to be smaller than ideal for a near 200-mile-an-hour car. But the Diablo got 17-inch, these split rims, and also a new type of tyre, and it was 35 17s at the rear, and those were donated by the Ferrari F40. So it has identical 245s at the front and 335s at the rear, identical tyres to the F40. There was a wing available, but none of the engineers liked it because it actually slowed the car down slightly and offered no downforce whatsoever. It was just a marketing ploy to extract a little bit more cash from customers. So I really like the fact that this car hasn't actually got that rubbish wing on it. Another thing that was cleaned up is already the design and the way it went through the air. While we all loved the way the Countach looked, put it in a wind tunnel and it's all a bit of a disaster. It has a CD factor of it's 0.4, 0.41, while the Diablo, much slipperier, had a slightly bigger frontal area, but so much slipperier, it was 0.31 in fact, which was pretty good for this type of car back in 1990. So overall then, the Diablo was about a foot longer than a Countach, and 10 inches of that 12-inch growth in length was actually in the cockpit, a longer wheelbase to give it a better interior, and it's dramatically better inside, the actual space inside, compared to the Countach. The downside of the extra length, etc., was the car was heavier. Now, I weigh my cars here, and very oddly, when I weighed the Diablo, it came out at 1533, which is approximately 120 kilos lighter than the declared weight. Lamborghini states 1655, and these two-wheel drive Diablos have always struck me as flipping quick. They don't feel as though they have the mass, and now I've put it on the scales, I have to believe the weight, because it weighed the Countach at the correct weight, 1430 kilos, so 100 kilos lighter than that Diablo. I also weighed the Testarossa just out of interest. I think that was 1,615 kilos, so I always knew that was a fair bit heavier than a Countach. But this doesn't weigh as much as Lamborghini state. I have a suspicion that 1655 was a weight for the VT rather than the two-wheel drive, because they wanted to release the VT, and maybe there was a little Italian mix-up and a big lunch, and they put out a weight that isn't correct. Or did they do it with a full tank? Because this has got half a tank in it, but it's I think it's a 120 litre tank in this. It's 22 gallons, whatever that is. Countach actually has a 26-gallon tank. Maybe that was the difference. But anyway, I stood on the sill of the car and it correctly put my weight at 75 kilos. So I have no reason to not believe the 1533. In fact, I weighed it twice because I thought this is ridiculous. But there you go. It's 120 kilos lighter than declared weight on my scales. There we go. First surprise here is this is actually made of composite. We'll go around the car, but they were just getting into using carbon fibre, and this boot lid is composite. And then there's a big hole in here, a big black hole. You probably can't see Alpine stereo in there as well. And this was part of the usability. Suddenly you've got a proper boot. You also got this lovely bag, quite different. Completely different to the Countach one. It's very nice metal enamelled with this sort of blue background enamel. Really nice. And again, it's another use of this new tech, this composite engine cover here, just like on the Countach QV, this one is composite as well. And there's the engine. Now, very different in early Diablo to the Countach because the carburettors have gone. The US federalised version of Countach used a similar arrangement with this fuel injection. This is multi-point sequential fuel injection, about as sophisticated as it got in its day. 5.7 litre compared to 5.2, so 500cc more, 492 horsepower instead of 455 from the QV, so a big step up in power. And just in usability, when we get out on the road, you'll see it's a very different engine, this, to the Countach. The other things you can see under here is, again, that air intake coming in here and then feeding these big air boxes. Left and right banks treated separately, 2 throttle bodies. One, there's a throttle body there, there's a throttle body there as well. And also, when we just come to the back, this looks like a boot lid here, like you get on the Countach. It's not. It's only removable if you're doing something with the exhaust or something. So there isn't an engine boot at the back. But what an engine this is. And yeah, really spectacular car. And 202 mile an hour declared top speed. Quite something. Right, let's take it outside and take it for a drive. Of course, you get the mad scissor doors to get in and out with. Something I've noticed over the Countach is when you go to open them, you do the catch like that, and then you can't push them up with your elbows. You can on a Countach. It's 2 arm jobs, and up they go. They just feel a bit heavier than on the Countach. I said they've got all the glass and motors in there. Storage and things inside. Well, behind the seats there's a little flap. You've got something there, and then hiding in here that sometimes is a little reluctant to open. There's a little bin in there as well. It's got the manual and stuff like that in. But yeah, mainly you've got this enormous great tunnel, no glove box, nothing in the door, and this distance to the windscreen, which is so far away, quite different to anything else. The other thing, early Diablo were infamous for what is known as the cliff dash. This is the cliff here, and the pods are right up here. So yeah, the other thing on a Diablo, the belt, the same in the Murcielago, come from the middle to the outside like that. But you have this very simple dash. I can see, what have I got? Oil temperature, fuel, battery, 3 little dials in the bottom I look through the wheel at, and then above the wheel I have a speedo, 340 kilometers an hour, oil pressure, water temperature and RPM, which goes yellow after 7,000 RPM, goes up to 7,500 RPM. Now start it, always lots of fans, every Diablo's like that, and Murcielago. Check engine lights on the right. Oh my lord, left and right banks separate. Checks have gone down. It's because it's got catalyst, etc. Oh, handbrake, fly off handbrake here. That's you do. Dog leg first, and you're away. Completely different gearbox on this to Countach, because it was always in the development to have a 4-wheel drive. So it has an outlet out the front, not used obviously in this one. Next shock, no power steering. Great big car, power steering still not available on early Diablos. It came a little later with VT. So there you go, a sensory overload before you barely set off. I'm going to make my way out of the village, and you'll join me later when we're on some better roads. Next surprise when you get out, and it's the actual stalks themselves. They're the same as the Countach, and they're from some British Leyland car. So I have to turn the fan off. You have to go 1, 2, 3 and then off, so that's why it's a bit noisy. But yeah, exactly the same stalks as on the Countach. On mine I have stickers on them because I've got right hand drive, and to stop the symbols being upside down they put stickers on them. And underneath the sticker are these symbols the wrong way around. But yeah, and I've got electric mirrors. I've got proper big mirrors. Main thing I can see in the mirrors is just a reminder of just how wide this car is at the rear. It's very like a Zonda. When you look in the mirror, you just my goodness, it's wide at the back. It's got wide hips, the Diablo. Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's left-hand drive, this car, but at least you've got good visibility compared to Countach. This is like a Testarossa. If you'd got out of a Testarossa into this, you'd be pretty happy. There is a sensory overload just because there's more sounds and buzzes coming through. Just feels that little bit more intimidating than Testarossa straight away. It's heavier steering as well. And the cabin sort of comes in at you. I keep knocking my head on this rail here. To get that good CD, it's really wrapped round the cockpit. This is quite an angle, this side window. But look, I've got electric windows. I can actually put the window almost all the way down. To a Countach owner, that's a revelation. I can actually hand things out and I can talk to people through the screen instead of feeling like I'm in prison and trying to talk through a little slot. So that's really nice. And the visibility out the back, it's normal as well. I haven't got that carburettor stack to peer past, and a big rear spoiler after that as well. So there's some real pluses from a usability point of view. That was important to Lamborghini, and they got it right. And yeah, I suppose the climate control is a biggie as well. Instead of the sliders I have in the Countach, at least now I have a digital control, and I've missed the lights. Oh, and I've got brakes. The other big shock, when you press the brake pedal, you stop. Because the other big change they made, they put a servo on the Diablo for the first time. Countach never had a servo, but it still feels a very solid pedal. It all feels good. But anyway, I'm itching to get it out on some proper roads. And I've just got to get out of here, and then that's what we'll go and do next. Quite comfy seats as well, and you've got a hugely adjustable wheel. This goes, I'm not going to demonstrate because I'm driving, but this goes fully in and out and up and down. And the cliff dash, there's a little button underneath, and you can make that higher as well. It doesn't actually go up and down with the wheel, it's a separate thing. But I could actually obscure my vision even more if I felt like it by putting it further up, but I'm not going to do that. The other thing I just want to demonstrate as we carry out this village is the gearing. And one thing I'm worried about is the sound on this video, because this car is so chuffing noisy. I just hope you can hear me over what's about to happen if I open the taps going up this hill. It may sound daft, but I'm going to actually just coming out of 30 zone, and I'm in first. Here, I'm going to take it to the red line, see how fast it is. Wow. Ah, there's a Diablo noise for you. Right, if you can still hear me, first takes you to the legal limit. You're well past just looking at about 110, 120 kilometres an hour. So 70 miles an hour in first gear in a Diablo. It's so long geared. But unlike a Porsche or something of today, you don't notice it that much because you've got a 5.7 litre V12 pushing you along. But now I know that curb weight is lighter than I expected. Well, that's why these things feel so chuffing quick. These very early two-wheel drive Diablos, to me, always feel way livelier than they have any right to, and particularly over the VT. But boy, it's an intimidating car. But what an event. Right, I'm going to turn right here onto one of my favourite stretches of road, just see what it's like down there. Pedals are quite close together. It's quite easy just to brush the brake when you're not actually expecting to. Right, I'm going down to first again, and here we go. Let's open her up. Traction's fine. Those 335s in the dry, plenty of traction. But then, just the weight of the steering and the weight of the gear change, it's just intimidating. That's the only word for it. If you jump out of today's a 488 or a McLaren, well, you just don't know what's hit you if you get into this thing. If you enjoy driving, it's like a complete overdose. The steering is just a revelation. It's not powered, but I get so much more information through it. This is Valentino Balbone's baby. He did all the development work on this. He knows Diablo better than anyone. It has a feel of someone like that who's put it all together. Here we go through my own Rouge. I'll watch the width into here. Rides reasonably well, but it hasn't got a lot of wheel travel. Up into second. are going to take on a track day, but the thrill of driving is at 110% behind the wheel of this thing. It's a bit impractical, it's a bit old, but God is it exciting. I think I'm just going to shut up and let you listen to the engine. Such a deep bellow, isn't it? That's so Lamborghini, that noise. I don't know another engine. Some have a finesse to them, they spin a bit like the Jaguar V12 or a Ferrari V12. But a Lamborghini V12, even though this is open square short stroke, it just has that wonderful like an uncouth McLaren F1. It's not a car you drive at like 10 temps. Just keep around 7 temps and just enjoy the craziness of it. Let the torque take you. No traction control, no nothing, no stability. The hedge is only an excessive amount of throttle away and you'll fire it at the scenery. But don't push it that hard and you'll bloody love this thing. Well, the owner of this car, I'll just calm down, I forget the cameras are on and I just want to enjoy myself. But yeah, the owner of this car has had all sorts of cars. And he actually came out, I think it was a McLaren 650S, and bought this, and he says, this is it, this is all I want, this is what I'm after. When I have my collection of cars, I want that mad moment, why I remember why I fell in love with driving, and I can fully see why, having now driven this car. Bonkers, absolutely bonkers. And this is a lovely example. This is only just coming up to 10,000 miles since new, nearly 30 years old. Remember this car, a wonderful example. And he paid about, I think it was about 160,000, but they're around 150 you'll find here at an early Diablo like this. I don't really want to say this in public, but I think it's an absolute bargain. I think the Countach at 350, 360, yes, it's more iconic, the look's more famous, but it isn't as usable, isn't as practical as this. But this is just bloody wonderful. So there you go. Hope that's given you a better idea of what the early Diablos are like. Hope you have enjoyed this video. Please keep watching, keep subscribing, hit notifications, all that stuff, because there'll be more videos coming along very soon.